Quiet people don't seek revenge. They finish stories.
The credit card statement lay open on my desk like a confession letter, the spa charges highlighted in yellow marker. $1,400 for a couple's retreat at some fancy place in Vermont. Problem was, I'd been working double shifts at the clinic that weekend, and Vanessa had supposedly been at a pharmaceutical conference in Chicago. I leaned back in my leather chair, the one piece of furniture in this house that was truly mine, and listened to the garage door rumble open. 10:43 p.m. Right on schedule for someone who claimed to be working late again. "Greg, you still up?" Vanessa's voice drifted up from the kitchen, honey sweet like always when she thought she might be in trouble. "In the office," I called back, folding the statement and sliding it into my desk drawer. 22 years of marriage had taught me the value of timing. Her heels clicked across the hardwood floor, each step measured and deliberate. Vanessa Harper never did anything without calculation. She appeared in my doorway looking immaculate despite her supposed 12-hour day. Not a blonde hair out of place, lipstick fresh, that particular glow that comes from good Zex and expensive wine. "How was your day, honey?" She leaned against the doorframe, her pharmaceutical sales smile firmly in place. "Oh, you know, sick people, insurance companies, the usual." I swiveled my chair to face her fully. "How was yours? Another late meeting with the regional team?" "Mm-hmm." She was already looking at her phone, thumb scrolling through messages. "These new product launches are killing me. I might need to travel more this quarter. Speaking of travel," I opened the drawer and pulled out the statement. "Got our credit card bill today. Interesting charges." The phone slipped from her fingers, clattering on the hardwood. For just a second, her mask dropped, and I saw something I'd never seen before in my wife's eyes. Genuine fear. "I can explain that," she said, bending to retrieve her phone. "I'm sure you can. You always were creative." I stood up, all 6'2" of me unfolding slowly. Vanessa was tall herself, but she still had to look up to meet my eyes. The Serenity Springs Couples Retreat. Very romantic name. "Did you enjoy it?" "Greg, please. It's not what you think. What I think is that my wife charged $1,400 for a romantic weekend while I was treating strep throat and ear infections. What I think is that someone named Aiden has been texting you at all hours. What I think is that you've been lying to me for months." Her face went through a fascinating series of expressions, denial, anger, and calculation, and finally settling on wounded innocence. It was like watching a masterclass in manipulation. "You've been spying on me? I've been living with you. There's a difference." I moved closer, close enough to smell her perfume, not the one I'd bought her for Christmas. "So who is he, Vanessa? Someone from work?" "You're being paranoid." "Am I? Then you won't mind if I call the hotel, ask them about their conference facilities, or maybe I'll check with your company, see if they have any record of reimbursing you for that Chicago trip." The color drained from her face. Vanessa was many things, ambitious, ruthless, calculating, but she'd never been a good liar when cornered. That was my specialty. "It's complicated," she whispered. "Uncomplicated." She sank into the chair across from my desk, the fight going out of her like air from a punctured tire. "His name is Aiden Brooks. He's in medical device sales. We've been seeing each other for 6 months. 6 months. I did the math quickly. That meant it started right around our anniversary. How wonderfully poetic. Seeing each other, is that what we're calling it? I sat back down, steepled my fingers. "And the conference in Chicago? We went to Martha's Vineyard instead." "Of course you did." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Let me guess. He's younger than me. Drives something expensive. Tells you how brilliant and beautiful you are. How you deserve so much more than your boring doctor husband." Don't what? Don't point out that you're having a midlife crisis cliche? Don't mention that you've been lying to my face every day for half a year? I leaned forward. Or don't mention that you've been risking both our health by sleeping around. That last part hit home. Vanessa's hand flew to her throat. "We've been careful." "Have you? Because here's the thing about being a doctor, sweetheart. I know things. I see test results. And your boyfriend, Aiden? He came to see me 3 weeks ago." The lie rolled off my tongue smooth as silk, but the effect was immediate and devastating. Vanessa went white as paper. "What are you talking about?" "Confidentiality prevents me from discussing specific test results, of course. But I will say this. You might want to get yourself checked. Soon." It wasn't true. Aiden Brooks had never set foot in my clinic. But Vanessa didn't know that, and the fear in her eyes was absolutely delicious. You're lying. Are you willing to bet your health on that? I stood up again. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to pack a bag, you're going to go stay with your lover boy. And you're going to think very carefully about what you want to do next. Greg, please, we can work this out. No, we can't. Because this isn't just about the affair, Vanessa. This is about who you are. This is about 22 years of marriage to someone who thinks I'm too stupid to notice when she's lying. I walked up to the door. Pack light. I'll be changing the locks tomorrow. You can't kick me out of my own house. Watch me. I left her sitting there, already reaching for her phone to call her precious Aiden. Let him comfort her. Let him deal with her panic about imaginary test results. Let him figure out what to do when the woman he'd been screwing turned out to come with more baggage than he'd bargained for. 22 years of marriage, and I'd never seen my wife's true face until tonight. But now that I had, I was going to make sure everyone else saw it too. Dr. Harper, your 9 o'clock is here, and she looks like she's been hit by a truck. Frankie Martinez had been my nurse for 8 years, and she had a gift for reading people that would make a poker player weep with envy. She also had absolutely no filter, which made her invaluable in a small town where everyone knew everyone else's business. Send her in, I said, not looking up from my computer screen. I'd been staring at the same patient file for 10 minutes, my mind elsewhere. You okay, Doc? You look like you didn't sleep much. I'm fine, Frankie. Uh-huh, and I'm the Queen of England. She plopped down in the chair across from my desk, clearly settling in for a chat. Heard Vanessa's car wasn't in your driveway this morning. Mrs. Wilkes mentioned it when she came in for her arterial pressure check. Of course she did. Mrs. Wilkes lived next door and had made neighborhood surveillance her personal hobby since retiring from the post office. Nothing happened on Maple Street without her knowledge. Vanessa's staying elsewhere for a while. Elsewhere, meaning that fancy new condo complex on Harbor Road, because I saw her car there yesterday when I was driving my mom to physical therapy. I looked up sharply. You saw her car? That white BMW with the pharma company plates? Hard to miss. She was coming out of Building C with some guy in an expensive suit. Tall, dark hair, looked like he spent more on his haircut than I make in a week. Aiden Brooks. Had to be. Did you recognize him? Nope, but he was driving a Tesla, red one. License plate said Closer One, or something equally obnoxious. Frankie rolled her eyes. The kind of guy who thinks his car is a personality. I made a mental note. Harbor Road condos. Building C, Tesla, with a vanity plate. Amazing how much information you could gather when you knew where to look. Frankie, what do you know about medical device sales reps in the area? Plenty. They're always trying to buy us lunch, get FaceTime with you about their latest gadgets. Why? Just curious about the industry? Vanessa works with some of them. Oh, honey. Frankie's expression softened. You want to tell me what's really going on? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. We need to talk. This is ridiculous. V. I showed the screen to Frankie, who snorted. She's texting you from a new number? That's either very sneaky or very desperate. Probably both. I deleted the message without responding. Send in my 9 o'clock, would you? Sure thing, but Doc, if you need anything, information, a shoulder, someone to accidentally bump into people with my car, just let me know. The patient turned out to be Mrs. Chen from the flower shop, worried about a rash that looked like nothing more than contact dermatitis from handling plants. Easy diagnosis, simple treatment. The kind of straightforward problem I wished I had in my personal life. By lunch, I'd seen 12 patients, renewed 6 prescriptions, and fielded 3 more texts from Vanessa's new number, each one more desperate than the last. Please call me. We can fix this. I made an appointment with Dr. Morrison for testing. Are you happy now? That last one made me smile. Dr. Morrison was a good physician, but he was also the biggest gossip in the medical community. By evening, half the doctors in town would know that Vanessa Harper was getting STD testing. The other half would know by morning. Dr. Harper? Frankie stuck her head into my office. Your last patient canceled. Want to grab lunch at Murphy's? I'm buying if you're willing to listen to me complain about my ex-husband's latest stupidity. Murphy's Deli was the unofficial gossip central of our small town. Doctors, lawyers, shop owners, and retirees all gathered there for overpriced sandwiches and underpriced information. It was exactly where I needed to be. Let's go. The lunch crowd was in full swing when we arrived. Frankie waved to half the room while I grabbed us a corner table with a good view of the entire restaurant. Old habits from my residency days. Always sit where you can see everything. So, Frankie said, unwrapping her turkey club, want to tell me why you're really asking about medical device reps? Vanessa's having an affair with one. Oh. She nodded like this explained everything. How long? 6 months, apparently. And you found out how? I told her about the credit card statement, the hotel charges, the confrontation. Frankie listened without interruption, occasionally nodding or making small sounds of disgust. So, she's shacked up with this Aiden guy and you're what, planning to divorce her? Eventually. But first, I want to know exactly what I'm dealing with. Meaning I want to know everything about Mr. Aiden Brooks. Where he works, who he knows, what kind of man thinks it's acceptable to sleep with someone else's wife. Frankie grinned. Now you're talking my language. Give me 24 hours. I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm volunteering. Besides, I never liked your wife much anyway. You never said that before. You never asked before. But since we're being honest, she always treated the staff like we were furniture. Never remembered my name, never said thank you. Acted like she was doing us a favor by existing in the same space. Frankie took a bite of her sandwich. Plus, she parked in the handicap spot that one time and told Mrs. Patterson it was just for a minute when she complained. I'd forgotten about that incident, but it was classic Vanessa. Rules were for other people. What kind of information are you looking for specifically? Everything. Work history, credit report, social media, where he shops, where he eats, what gym he uses. I want to know this man better than his own mother does. That might take more than 24 hours. Then take 48. I'm not going anywhere. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Vanessa. The test results will be back tomorrow. When they're negative, we're going to talk. I showed it to Frankie, who laughed out loud. She still doesn't get it, does she? This isn't about test results. This is about trust, respect, basic human decency. No, she doesn't get it, but she will. What's that supposed to mean? I looked around the crowded restaurant, at all the familiar faces of people I'd known for years. Good people, mostly. Honest people who worked hard and treated each other with respect. People who would be very interested to learn that one of their neighbors had been carrying on an affair while her husband worked 60-hour weeks, taking care of their community. It means Vanessa's about to learn that actions have consequences, and in a town this size, consequences have a way of following you everywhere you go. Frankie's grin widened. I like the way you think, Doc. I like it a lot. Frankie delivered her report exactly 48 hours later, dropping a manila folder on my desk with the satisfaction of a cat presenting a dead mouse. Aiden Michael Brooks, age 42, originally from Connecticut, divorced 3 years ago, pays alimony to an ex-wife named Patricia and child support for twin daughters he sees every other weekend. She settled into her chair. Want the good stuff or the really good stuff first? Start with the basics. He works for MedTech Solutions, sells surgical equipment and devices to hospitals and clinics throughout New England. Makes good money, around $200,000 a year plus bonuses. Drives a leased Tesla, lives in a rented condo, and spends way more than he makes trying to maintain his image. Debt problems? Credit cards maxed out, behind on his alimony payments, and get this, he borrowed $50,000 from his company's emergency fund last year. Supposedly paid it back, but the timing was suspicious. I leaned forward. Now, what kind of suspicious? The kind where a big hospital contract got approved right after the money was repaid, and the purchasing manager happened to be someone Aiden had been dating. So he's done this before. Oh, honey, this man has a pattern. 3 serious relationships in the past 5 years, all with women in positions to help his career. A hospital administrator, a pharmaceutical company executive, and now your wife. The pieces were falling into place. Vanessa wasn't some great love affair. She was a business opportunity. Her position at the pharmaceutical company, her connections in the medical community, her influence with purchasing decisions. What else? He's a member at that fancy gym downtown, the one with the juice bar and the personal trainers who look like underwear models. Eats lunch at the Gavel 3 times a week, always orders the salmon, and tries to impress the waitresses with his wine knowledge. Frankie flipped through her notes. Oh, and he's been telling people he's thinking about proposing to someone soon. That stopped me cold. Proposing? Yep, bragging about it at the gym, apparently. Says he's found the perfect woman, successful, beautiful, and ready to take the next step. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Not jealousy, something much more dangerous. Rage. There's more, Frankie continued. I had coffee with Jennifer Walsh yesterday. You remember Jennifer? She used to work in billing at Regional Medical. I nodded. Jennifer had left her job 6 months ago under mysterious circumstances. Turns out she didn't quit. She was fired for taking kickbacks from medical device companies. And guess whose signature was on the contracts she approved? Aiden Brooks. Bingo. Jennifer's bitter as hell about it, too. Says Aiden threw her under the bus to save his own skin, promised he'd help her find another job, and then ghosted her completely. Is she willing to talk? She's willing to do more than talk. She's got documentation, emails, contracts, even some recordings she made when she realized Aiden was setting her up to take the fall. This was better than I'd hoped. Not only was Aiden a serial cheater and manipulator, he was also potentially guilty of fraud and corruption. The kind of information that could destroy a career and maybe even result in criminal charges. Where is Jennifer now? Working at a medical supply company in Portland, making half what she used to. She's got a mortgage, 2 kids, and an ex-husband who's behind on child support. She could use a friend. Set up a meeting. My phone rang before Frankie could respond. The caller ID showed my son Ethan's number. Hey, Dad, got a minute? Of course. What's up? I'm at the house picking up some books and Mom's here. She's pretty upset, crying and stuff. She wants to know when you're coming home. Ethan was 19 and went home from college for spring break. Smart kid, studying pre-med like his old man. He deserved better than being caught in the middle of his parents' marriage falling apart. Tell her I'm not coming home until she moves out. Dad, what's going on? She won't tell me anything except that you two are having problems. We'll talk tonight. Can you meet me for dinner? Yeah, sure. Sophie's driving up from Boston too. She wants to know what's happening. Sophie was our 21-year-old daughter, a senior at Boston University studying business, sharp as a tack and twice as tough. She was going to take this hard. Good. We'll all talk. 7 o'clock at Antonelli's. After I hung up, Frankie was looking at me with sympathy. Kids don't deserve this, she said quietly. No, they don't. But they deserve the truth, and they deserve to know what kind of person their mother really is. You're going to tell them about the affair? I'm going to tell them everything. They're adults. They can handle it. My phone buzzed with another text from Vanessa. Test results came back negative. I told you this was all unnecessary. Come home so we can talk like adults. I showed it to Frankie, who snorted. Like adults? That's rich coming from someone who's been sneaking around like a teenager. She still doesn't understand that this isn't about the test results. What is it about? I thought about that for a moment. What was it about? The lying, certainly. The betrayal, the disrespect, the way she'd made me feel like a fool for months while carrying on with another man. But it was more than that. It's about the fact that she thought I was too stupid to figure it out. It's about the way she's been treating me, like an obstacle to her happiness instead of her partner. It's about 22 years of marriage that apparently meant nothing to her. And now she's going to learn that I'm not the pushover she thought I was. She's going to learn that actions have consequences, and some things can't be fixed with tears and apologies. Frankie grinned. I do love it when you get that look in your eyes. Reminds me why I like working for you. What look? The same look you get when you're dealing with a difficult diagnosis. Like you're going to solve the problem no matter what it takes. She wasn't wrong. I was approaching this like a medical case. Gather information, analyze the symptoms, develop a treatment plan, and execute it with precision. The only difference was that this time, the patient was my marriage, and the prognosis was terminal. Set up that meeting with Jennifer Walsh, I said, and see what else you can find out about Aiden's business practices. I have a feeling we're just scratching the surface. What about Vanessa? What about her? She's going to keep pushing, keep trying to come home, keep demanding that you talk to her. I looked out my office window at the parking lot where my wife's BMW sat for 8 years in the same spot every day. Reliable, predictable, boring Dr. Harper and his successful wife. The perfect couple. Let her push. Let her demand. Let her do whatever she wants. Because in about a week, she's going to have much bigger problems to worry about than our marriage. Antonelli's was crowded for a Wednesday night, but I'd managed to get our usual table in the back corner where we could talk without being overheard. Ethan arrived first. looking uncomfortable in the way that only college kids forced into family drama could manage. Sophie showed up 10 minutes later, her business school training evident in the way she surveyed the situation before even sitting down. "Okay, Dad," she said, not bothering with small talk. "What's going on? Mom called me crying this morning, saying you'd kicked her out and were being unreasonable about some misunderstanding." Misunderstanding. I tasted the word like something bitter. Is that what she called it? She wouldn't give me details, just kept saying you'd jumped to the wrong conclusions and wouldn't listen to reason. Ethan leaned forward. "She's been at the house all day, going through papers and making phone calls. She kept asking when you'd be home, like she expected you to just show up and everything would be normal." Nothing about this situation is normal. I waited while the waitress took our drink orders, then looked at both my children. "Your mother has been having an affair for the past 6 months." The words landed like a physical blow. Sophie's face went white, while Ethan just stared at me like I'd started speaking a foreign language. "That's impossible," Sophie said finally. Mom would never what? Lie, cheat, put her own desires ahead of her family?" I pulled out my phone and showed them the credit card statement I'd printed. She charged $1,400 for a romantic weekend at a spa while I was working. When I confronted her, she admitted to the affair. Ethan studied the statement, his pre-med training kicking in as he analyzed the evidence. "This is from 2 weeks ago. The affair has been going on for 6 months. The spa weekend was just the most recent lie I caught her in." "Who is he?" Sophie's voice was barely above a whisper. "His name is Aiden Brooks. He sells medical equipment, and according to my research, he has a pattern of targeting successful women who can help his career." "Research?" Ethan looked up sharply. Dad, what kind of research?" I told him everything. The credit card charges, the confrontation, Vanessa's confession, Frankie's investigation into Aiden's background. I told him about his history of using women for professional gain, about the fraud allegations, about his bragging that he was planning to propose. By the time I finished, Sophie was crying quietly, and Ethan looked like he wanted to hit something. "I can't believe this," Sophie said. "I can't believe she would do this to us, to you." She didn't think she'd get caught, and even now, she's trying to minimize it, make it seem like it's my fault for not trusting her. "What are you going to do?" Ethan asked. "I'm going to divorce her, but first, I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of person she is." "Dad," Sophie said carefully, "you're talking about revenge. I'm talking about consequences. There's a difference. Is there?" I looked at my daughter, seeing so much of myself in her cautious intelligence, her need to think through all the angles before making a decision. "Your mother didn't just betray me, Sophie. She betrayed our entire family. She risked our health, our reputation, our financial security, all for some smooth-talking con man who saw her as a business opportunity." I leaned forward. She made her choices. Now she gets to live with the results. "But what about us?" Ethan's voice cracked slightly. "What about the family? The family ended the day your mother decided another man was more important than her husband and children. I'm just making it official." My phone buzzed. Text message from Vanessa. "The kids are with you, aren't they? Don't poison them against me. Whatever problems we have, leave them out of it." I showed the message to Sophie and Ethan. "She's asking you to leave us out of it?" Sophie's voice was rising. "She's the one who destroyed our family." "She doesn't see it that way. In her mind, she's the victim here. I'm the unreasonable husband who won't forgive a little mistake." "A little mistake?" Ethan slammed his hand on the table, causing other diners to look our way. 6 months is not a mistake. That's a choice she made every single day. "Keep your voice down," I said quietly. We're in public. "I don't care who hears me. I'm tired of protecting her reputation when she obviously doesn't care about ours." Sophie wiped her eyes with her napkin. "What do you need from us, Dad?" "I need you to know the truth. I need you to understand that whatever happens next, I didn't want this. I tried to build a life with your mother, but she decided that wasn't enough. And now I'm going to show her what happens when you underestimate someone. She thought I was too boring, too predictable, too weak to fight back." I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. She was wrong. My phone rang. Vanessa's number. "Don't answer it," Sophie said quickly. "Oh, I'm going to answer it, but not here." I stood up. "Order whatever you want for dinner. I'll be right back." I walked outside into the cool evening air and answered on the 4th ring. "Hello, Vanessa." Greg, thank God. Listen, I know you're angry, but we need to talk. Really talk. Not like the other night when you were so upset you couldn't think clearly. I was thinking very clearly. You're the one who seems confused. I made a mistake, I admit that, but it's over now, and we can move past this if you'll just... It's over? You ended it? A pause. Well, not exactly ended it, but... So you're still with him. It's complicated. No, Vanessa, it's really not. You're either married to me or you're with him. You don't get both. Why are you being so black and white about this? People make mistakes. People work through problems. That's what marriage is about. I could see Sophie and Ethan through the restaurant window, sitting close together, talking quietly. My children, trying to process the fact that their mother had blown up their family for a man she barely knew. You know what marriage is about, Vanessa? It's about respect. It's about honesty. It's about putting your family first instead of whatever makes you feel good in the moment. I never meant for this to happen, but it did happen. For 6 months, it happened. Every time you lied to me, every time you snuck around behind my back, every time you came home and acted like the loving wife while you were planning your next rendezvous. Greg, please. I'm done, Vanessa. With the lies, with the excuses, with pretending that this is something we can fix. You made your choice. Now live with it. I hung up and turned off the phone. When I got back to the table, Sophie and Ethan were waiting with worried expressions. How bad was it? Sophie asked. She still doesn't understand that it's over. She thinks this is something we can work through with counseling and time. Can you? Ethan asked quietly. Work through it, I mean. I looked at my son, this young man who still believed that love could conquer all, that people were basically good, that families stayed together because they were supposed to. No, I said simply. Some things can't be fixed. Some betrayals are too deep, too fundamental. Your mother didn't just cheat on me. She showed me that everything I thought I knew about her was wrong. So what happens now? Sophie asked. Now we order dinner and we talk about anything except your mother. And tomorrow, I start making sure that everyone in this town knows exactly what kind of person Vanessa Harper really is. The waitress came by to take our order, and for a few minutes we pretended to be a normal family having a normal dinner. But we all knew that normal was gone forever, destroyed by a woman who thought she deserved more than the life she'd built with us. As I watched my children try to process their new reality, I felt something cold and hard settle in my chest. Vanessa had made her choice. Now she was going to discover that choices had consequences, and some consequences lasted a lifetime. Jennifer Walsh looked older than I remembered, stress lines around her eyes that hadn't been there when she worked at Regional Medical. We met at a coffee shop in Portland, far enough from home that we wouldn't run into anyone we knew. Dr. Harper, I have to say I was surprised when your nurse called. I wasn't sure you'd want to be seen with me after what happened. What happened wasn't your fault, Jennifer. You were set up. She laughed bitterly. Try telling that to my former colleagues, or my mortgage company, or my kids when they ask why we can't afford the things we used to. I studied her across the small table. Jennifer had been good at her job, honest as far as I knew, the kind of employee who followed rules and trusted that doing the right thing would be enough. Aiden Brooks had destroyed her life as casually as someone swatting a fly. Tell me about Aiden. What do you want to know? Everything. How he operates, who he targets, what his weaknesses are. His weaknesses? Jennifer raised an eyebrow. Planning something? He's having an affair with my wife. Ah. She nodded like this explained everything. Then you're in for a rough ride. Aiden doesn't just sleep with women. He studies them, finds out what they want, what they're missing in their lives, and then becomes exactly what they need. What did my wife need? Excitement, probably. Adventure. The feeling that she was special, chosen, worth taking risks for. Jennifer stirred her coffee thoughtfully. Aiden's very good at making women feel like they're the most fascinating person he's ever met. Until he gets what he wants. Until he gets what he wants, she agreed. In my case, it was contract approvals and inside information about upcoming purchases. What does your wife have that he needs? I thought about Vanessa's position at the pharmaceutical company, her connections throughout the medical community, her influence with purchasing decisions. Access, connections. She knows everyone in the regional medical market. Then he'll keep her around as long as she's useful. The question is, what happens when she stops being useful? What happened to you when you stopped being useful? Jennifer's face darkened. He threw me under the bus so fast it left skid marks. When the investigation started, he had emails ready to show that I was the one pushing for the contracts, that I was the one taking kickbacks, that he was just an innocent salesman following my lead. But you have proof that's not true. I have some proof. Enough to raise questions, maybe even enough to get his company to investigate him. But probably not enough for criminal charges. What kind of proof? She reached into her purse and pulled out a flash drive. Emails, contract documents, and about 6 hours of recorded phone conversations. I started recording everything once I realized what he was doing. Are you willing to share that information? With you, absolutely. With the authorities? That's more complicated. I could face charges myself for some of the things I did, even though I was manipulated into doing them. I pocketed the flash drive. What if there was a way to expose him without involving you directly? What do you mean? I mean, what if someone else discovered evidence of his fraudulent practices? Someone with no connection to you, no reason to protect you, just a concerned citizen who stumbled across information about corruption in medical device sales? Jennifer smiled for the first time since we'd sat down. That would be very interesting, especially if that information happened to reach the right people at his company, and maybe a few key clients who might want to review their contracts with him. Hypothetically speaking, of course. We talked for another hour. Jennifer filled in details about Aiden's methods, his personality, his professional relationships. She gave me names of other women he'd used and discarded, other companies where he'd left a trail of questionable deals. By the time I left Portland, I had a clear picture of the man who'd been sleeping with my wife. Aiden Brooks wasn't just a cheater. He was a predator who used women's emotions as tools to advance his career. He'd done it before, he was doing it now with Vanessa, and he'd keep doing it until someone stopped him. That someone was going to be me. I drove back to town with my mind racing, plans forming and reforming as I considered all the angles. The flash drive in my pocket contained enough information to destroy Aiden's career, but I needed to be smart about how I used it. Too direct, and it would look like a jealous husband's revenge. Too subtle, and it might not have the impact I wanted. My phone had been buzzing with messages all afternoon. I pulled over at a rest stop to check them. 3 from Vanessa. We need to talk. This is ridiculous. I'm coming to the clinic tomorrow. 2 from Ethan. Mom's been calling me all day. She wants me to talk to you. 1 from Sophie. Stay strong, Dad. We're with you. And 1 from Frankie. Got more info on your friend Aiden. You're gonna love this. I called Frankie first. Please tell me you have good news. Better than good. I had lunch with my cousin Maria today. She works in the billing department at Mass General. Guess whose contracts are under review for irregularities? Aiden's? Bingo. Apparently there have been complaints about his sales practices, questions about some of the deals he's negotiated. Nothing official yet, but the hospital's legal department is taking a close look. This was perfect. If Mass General was already investigating Aiden, the information on Jennifer's flash drive would be like gasoline on a fire. Frankie, I need you to do something for me, but it has to be completely anonymous, no connection to me or the clinic. I'm listening. I need someone to send some documents to the compliance officer at Mass General. Documents that might help with their investigation into medical device sales practices. What kind of documents? The kind that show a pattern of fraudulent behavior by certain sales representatives. There was a pause. Doc, are you sure about this? Once you go down this road, there's no turning back. I'm sure. Aiden Brooks has been destroying people's lives for years. It's time someone returned the favor. Okay, give me the documents and I'll make sure they reach the right people. No fingerprints, no trail back to you. Thank you, Frankie. Don't thank me yet. What about your wife? I looked out at the highway, at all the people driving home to their families, their normal lives, their intact marriages. Vanessa made her choice when she decided Aiden was more important than our marriage. Now she gets to live with the consequences of that choice. Even if those consequences include watching her boyfriend's life fall apart, especially then. She needs to understand what kind of man she chose over her family. She needs to see exactly what Aiden Brooks does to people who trust him. And after that, then she shall have to decide if a man who's lost his job, his reputation, and his future is still worth destroying her marriage for. I hung up and sat in my car for a few more minutes, watching the traffic flow past. In a few days, maybe a week, Aiden Brooks's world would start to crumble. His company would investigate him, his clients would drop him, his income would disappear. And Vanessa would have to choose between standing by a man who'd used her or trying to salvage what was left of her marriage. I was betting she'd choose herself, just like she always had. And when she did, she'd discover that some bridges once burned could never be rebuilt. I started the car and headed home, to the house that was finally mine again, to plan the next phase of Aiden Brooks's downfall. The call came on a Friday morning while I was between patients. Frankie stuck her head into my office with a grin that could have lit up the entire building. "Dr. Harper, you might want to take this. It's Vanessa, and she sounds upset." I picked up the phone. "Hello, Vanessa." "Greg, something terrible has happened. Aiden's been suspended from his job. They're investigating him for fraud or something. His company froze his accounts, and they're threatening criminal charges." I leaned back in my chair, fighting to keep the satisfaction out of my voice. "That sounds serious." "It's more than serious. It's devastating. He could go to prison. And the worst part is, he thinks someone set him up. Someone who had access to his files and contracts. Any idea who? He thinks it might be connected to you somehow. He says the timing is too convenient right after our situation." "Our situation? Is that what you're calling your affair now?" "Greg, please. This isn't the time for sarcasm. Aiden's life is falling apart. And that's my problem because—" There was a long pause. When Vanessa spoke again, her voice was smaller, more uncertain than I'd heard it in years. "Because I think I might have made a mistake." "Which mistake would that be? The affair or getting caught?" "Don't be cruel." "Cruel? Vanessa, you destroyed our marriage for a man who's now under investigation for fraud. You risked everything we built together for someone who apparently makes a living manipulating women. And you want to talk to me about cruelty? I know you're angry. I'm not angry anymore. I'm done." "There's a difference." "What does that mean?" I looked out my office window at the parking lot where her BMW used to sit every day. "It means I've filed for divorce. You'll be served with papers this afternoon." The silence stretched so long, I thought she'd hung up. Finally, she whispered, "You can't be serious." "Completely serious. I've also changed the locks on the house, closed our joint accounts, and removed you from my insurance policies. You're officially on your own." "Greg, please. I know I hurt you, but we can work through this. Couples therapy, counseling, whatever you want. Just don't throw away 22 years of marriage." "I'm not throwing it away. You already did that. But I love you." The words hung in the air like a bad smell. Love. After 6 months of lying, cheating, and betrayal, she wanted to talk about love. "No, Vanessa, you don't. You love the security I provided. You love the respectability of being married to a doctor. You love having someone to fall back on when your boyfriend turns out to be a criminal. But you don't love me." "That's not true. Prove it. When did you last ask about my day? When did you last show interest in my work, my thoughts, my feelings? When did you last choose me over something else you wanted?" Another long silence. "That's what I thought," I said. "Enjoy your new life, Vanessa. You earned it." I hung up and sat back in my chair, feeling something I hadn't experienced in months. Peace. The anger was gone, burned away by the satisfaction of watching Aiden's world collapse. What remained was clarity, purpose, and the knowledge that I'd finally stopped being a victim. Frankie knocked on my door. "Everything okay?" I could hear her yelling from the reception desk. "Everything's perfect." "What's my afternoon look like?" "Light, Mrs. Patterson at 2 for her diabetes check, Tommy Rodriguez at 3 for his sports physical, and that's it. Want me to see if we can squeeze in any walk-ins?" "Actually, I think I'll leave early today. I have some personal business to take care of." The personal business was a stop at Murphy's Deli, where I knew the afternoon crowd would be buzzing with gossip about Aiden Brooks's sudden fall from grace. Small towns love nothing more than watching a big shot get taken down, especially one who'd been flashing money and acting superior. I wasn't disappointed. The conversation stopped when I walked in, then resumed in hushed tones as people tried to figure out if I knew about my wife's connection to the disgraced salesman. "Dr. Harper," called out Bill Murphy from behind the counter. "The usual? Please." I took my sandwich to a table near the back and listened to the conversations swirling around me. The story had grown in the telling, as stories do. Aiden wasn't just under investigation. He was definitely guilty. He wasn't just suspended, he was fired. He wasn't just in financial trouble, he was broke. "I heard his company's going after him for restitution," said Mrs. Chen from the flower shop. "Could be hundreds of thousands of dollars." "Serves him right," replied Bob Patterson, the retired police chief. "Man like that thinking he can buy his way into anything. Always rubbed me the wrong way." What about his girlfriend? Asked someone else. That pharmaceutical woman he's been seen with? Vanessa Harper, supplied Mrs. Wilkes, my neighbor. Poor Dr. Harper. Must be awful for him having his wife mixed up with a criminal. I kept eating my sandwich, letting the conversation wash over me. Poor Dr. Harper indeed. If only they knew how not poor I was feeling at that moment. My phone buzzed. Text message from Sophie. Heard about Mom's boyfriend on the news. Are you okay? I typed back, better than okay. Justice has a way of working out. Another message, this one from Ethan. Mom called me crying. Says you won't talk to her. Nothing left to say. She made her choice. A third message from an unknown number. This is Aiden. We need to talk. I know you're behind this. I stared at that last message for a long moment, then typed a response. I don't know what you're talking about, but I hear unemployment gives you lots of free time. Maybe you can use it to reflect on your life choices. I deleted his number and blocked it. Whatever Aiden Brooks wanted to say to me, I wasn't interested in hearing it. By the time I finished my sandwich, the entire deli knew that Vanessa Harper's boyfriend was under investigation for fraud, that Harper had filed for divorce, and that justice had been served in the most satisfying way possible. I drove home through the tree-lined streets of my neighborhood, past the houses where I'd delivered babies, treated sick children, and helped families through medical crises. These were my people, my community. They respected hard work, honesty, and loyalty. They had no patience for people who thought rules didn't apply to them. Vanessa's BMW was in my driveway. I parked behind it, blocking her in, and walked to the front door. She was sitting on the porch steps, looking smaller and more defeated than I'd ever seen her. The locks, she said without looking up. I told you I changed them. I know, I needed to come home. This isn't your home anymore. She looked up then, and I saw that she'd been crying. Her makeup was smudged, her hair disheveled, her clothes wrinkled. This wasn't the polished, confident woman who'd been sneaking around behind my back for 6 months. This was someone who'd finally realized that actions had consequences. Greg, please, I know I made mistakes, but I'm begging you, don't do this. Don't throw away everything we built together. What did we build together, Vanessa? Really? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like I built a life, and you lived in it until something better came along. That's not fair. Fair, I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You want to talk about fair? Was it fair to lie to me for 6 months? Was it fair to risk my health by sleeping around? Was it fair to spend our money on romantic getaways with another man? I'll pay you back. With what? Your boyfriend's unemployed, remember? And something tells me he won't be in a position to help with expenses for a very long time. She flinched like I'd slapped her. You did this to him, didn't you? You destroyed his career. I didn't have to destroy anything. I just made sure the right people knew what kind of man he really was. Aiden Brooks destroyed his own career by being a fraud and a manipulator. I just helped speed up the process. He could go to prison. That's between him and the legal system. Not my problem. Vanessa stood up, and for a moment I saw a flash of the old anger, the entitled fury of someone who wasn't used to being told no. You fool! You cold, calculating fool! I never knew you could be so vindictive. You never knew me at all. That was the problem. So this is it? 22 years of marriage, and you're just going to throw it all away for revenge? I'm not throwing anything away. I'm finally stopping you from throwing it away. I pulled out my keys. Move your car, Vanessa. You're trespassing. Where am I supposed to go? That's not my problem anymore. Maybe your boyfriend has some ideas. Oh, wait. He's probably too busy dealing with federal investigators to worry about your housing situation. She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her trying to process this new version of her husband. The pushover was gone. The man who'd spent 22 years accommodating her wishes, enabling her selfishness, and putting her needs first had been replaced by someone who simply didn't care what happened to her. I hate you, she whispered. No, you don't. You hate that you finally have to face the consequences of your choices. You hate that your safety net is gone. You hate that you can't manipulate me anymore. I unlocked my front door. But you don't hate me. You never cared enough about me to hate me. I went inside and closed the door, leaving her standing on the porch of what used to be her home. Through the window, I watched her get in her car and drive away, probably to figure out what remained of her life now that both her husband and her boyfriend were gone. I poured myself a glass of wine and sat in my leather chair, the one piece of furniture in the house that had always been truly mine. Outside, the sun was setting over the neighborhood where I'd lived for 2 decades, where I'd built a reputation as a good doctor and a decent man. Tomorrow, everyone would know that Dr. Greg Harper wasn't someone you could cheat, lie to, or take advantage of. They'd know that quiet, reliable Dr. Harper had a backbone made of steel and a capacity for justice that his enemies underestimated at their own peril. Vanessa had wanted excitement, adventure, a man who would sweep her off her feet and make her feel special. Instead, she'd gotten a con artist who'd used her and then abandoned her the moment his life got complicated. She'd had a good man who loved her, provided for her, and would have done anything to make her happy. And she'd thrown it all away for a fantasy that turned out to be a nightmare. As I sat in the growing darkness, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Complete satisfaction. Justice had been served, accounts had been balanced, and the people who'd thought they could manipulate and betray me had learned otherwise. The old Greg Harper would have felt guilty about destroying 2 lives. The new Greg Harper just felt grateful that the trash had taken itself out. 3 weeks after Vanessa moved out, I was leaving the clinic when I saw him. Aiden Brooks, sitting in his Tesla in the parking lot, looking like a man who had aged 5 years in a month. The expensive suit was wrinkled, his hair needed cutting, and there were dark circles under his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights and mounting legal bills. He got out of his car as I approached mine, moving with the careful desperation of someone who had nothing left to lose. "Dr. Harper, we need to talk." "No, we don't." I unlocked my car door without looking at him. "Please, just 5 minutes." Something in his voice made me turn around. This wasn't the smooth, confident salesman who'd been sleeping with my wife. This was a broken man facing the ruins of everything he'd built. "5 minutes. You destroyed my life." "No, I didn't. You destroyed your own life by being a fraud and a cheat. I just made sure people found out about it. Those documents that got sent to my company, to the hospitals, you were behind that. Prove it." He stared at me for a long moment, and I could see him trying to reconcile the mild-mannered doctor he'd heard about with the man who'd systematically dismantled his career. "I underestimated you. Everyone does. It's been very useful over the years. The federal investigation, the criminal charges, the civil suits. That's all because of you. That's all because of what you did. I just made sure the right people knew about it." "Why?" "Because of Vanessa." I leaned against my car, studying this man who'd thought he could steal my wife and walk away without consequences. Vanessa was just the catalyst. This is about what you are, a predator who uses women's emotions to advance your career. Jennifer Walsh, Patricia Morrison, Linda Chen, and how many others? You destroy people's lives as casually as most people change clothes. His face went white. "You know about the others. I know about all of them. Every woman you used, every contract you manipulated, every life you ruined for your own benefit. Vanessa was just the latest victim, except this time you picked the wrong target. She wasn't a victim. She wanted excitement, adventure, something her boring husband couldn't give her. And what did you want? Her connections in the pharmaceutical industry? Her influence with purchasing decisions? Or were you just planning to use her until something better came along, like you did with all the others?" The silence stretched between us, broken only by the sound of traffic on the street behind us. "Both," he said finally. "I needed her connections, but I also, I cared about her." "No, you didn't. You cared about what she could do for you, just like you cared about Jennifer Walsh until she stopped being useful. Just like you cared about all the others. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You're a sociopath who's very good at mimicking human emotions. You study women like a scientist studying lab rats, figure out what they need, and then become exactly that person until you get what you want. That's not true, isn't it? Tell me, Aiden, what was Vanessa missing in her marriage that made her vulnerable to your manipulation?" He looked away, unable to meet my eyes. She felt unappreciated, taken for granted. She wanted someone who saw her as exciting, desirable, worth taking risks for. And you became that someone. The attentive lover who hung on her every word, who made her feel like the most fascinating woman in the world. Very effective technique. It wasn't all an act. Yes, it was. Because if you'd really cared about her, you wouldn't have been planning to propose to her while you were still paying alimony to your ex-wife. You wouldn't have been using her company connections to advance your career. And you sure as hell wouldn't have abandoned her the moment your life got complicated. "I didn't abandon her." "No? Then where is she now?" living in a studio apartment across town, working temp jobs because her pharmaceutical company fired her for associating with you. When's the last time you called her? When's the last time you offered to help with her expenses? The look on his face told me everything I needed to know. That's what I thought. You got what you needed from her, and now that she's more liability than asset, you've moved on, just like always. What do you want from me? Nothing. You're already finished. Your career's over, your reputation is destroyed, and you're facing federal charges that could put you in prison for years. My work here is done. Then why are we having this conversation? I pushed off from my car and stepped closer to him. For the first time since we'd started talking, he looked genuinely afraid, because I wanted you to know that it was me. I wanted you to understand that when you chose to destroy my marriage, you picked a fight with someone who's smarter, more patient, and more ruthless than you ever imagined. You're not ruthless. You're a small-town doctor. I'm a small-town doctor who spent 4 years in medical school, 4 years in residency, and 20 years in practice, learning how to diagnose problems and eliminate them. You were a problem, Aiden. Now you're eliminated. He took a step back, finally understanding that he was looking at a predator who'd been disguised as prey for so long that everyone had forgotten what he really was. What about Vanessa? Are you going to destroy her too? Vanessa destroyed herself. I just stopped enabling her to do it at my expense. She loves you, you know. She calls me crying, begging me to help her fix things with you. And what do you tell her? I tell her to find a good lawyer and move on, that you're not the man she thought you married. Finally, something we agree on. I'm not the man she thought she married. I'm much worse. I got in my car and rolled down the window. One last piece of advice, Aiden. When you're sitting in your cell thinking about all the choices that led you there, remember this conversation. Remember that there are consequences for treating people like disposable objects. And remember that some of us fight back. I drove away, leaving him standing in the empty parking lot with the ruins of his life scattered around him like broken glass. That night, I sat in my study with a glass of wine and the divorce papers that had been finalized that afternoon. 22 years of marriage, reduced to a legal document that divided assets and terminated obligations. Vanessa had gotten half of our savings, but that was fine. I'd made sure to move most of our assets into accounts she couldn't access before filing. She'd gotten her car and her personal belongings, but the house was mine. She'd gotten her freedom, but she'd also gotten the consequences of her choices. My phone rang. Sophie's number. Hey, Dad, how are you holding up? Better than expected. The divorce is final. I know. Mom called me. She's not doing well. That's not my problem anymore. I know. But she's still my mother. I heard the conflict in my daughter's voice, the struggle between loyalty to me and concern for the woman who'd given birth to her. Sophie, I would never ask you to choose between us. Your mother made some terrible decisions, but she's still your parent. You have every right to maintain a relationship with her. What about you? Do you hate her? I thought about that question for a long moment. Did I hate Vanessa? The woman who'd shared my bed for 22 years, who'd given me 2 beautiful children, who'd been my partner in building the life I'd thought we both wanted? No, I said finally. I don't hate her. I just don't care about her anymore. There's a difference. That might be worse. It might be, but it's honest. We talked for a few more minutes about her classes, her job prospects after graduation, her plans for the summer. Normal father-daughter conversation, the kind I'd been having with her for 21 years. Some things didn't change, even when everything else fell apart. After we hung up, I walked through my house now, not our house, and felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Complete peace. The constant tension of living with someone who didn't respect me was gone. The anxiety of wondering what Vanessa was really doing, really thinking, really planning was over. The exhaustion of trying to make someone happy who was fundamentally incapable of happiness had lifted. I was 52 years old, financially secure, professionally respected, and completely free to build whatever life I wanted. The future stretched ahead of me like an open road, full of possibilities I'd forgotten existed. Vanessa had wanted excitement and adventure. Instead, she'd gotten a con man who'd used her and discarded her like a broken toy. She'd wanted someone who would appreciate her, and she'd found someone who'd seen her as nothing more than a business opportunity. She'd had a husband who'd loved her, provided for her, and built a good life with her. And she'd thrown it all away for a fantasy that had turned into a nightmare. As I turned off the lights and headed upstairs to bed, I thought about Aiden Brooks, probably sitting in his empty condo, staring at legal documents and wondering how his perfect plan had gone so wrong. I thought about Vanessa, alone in her studio apartment, finally understanding that actions had consequences and some mistakes couldn't be undone. And I thought about myself, the quiet, predictable, boring Dr. Harper who'd turned out to be anything but predictable when pushed too far. Tomorrow, I'd go back to work. I'd treat patients, save lives, and continue being the respected member of the community I'd always been. But I'd do it with the knowledge that I was nobody's victim, nobody's fool, and nobody's safety net. I'd do it as a man who'd been tested and had passed with flying colors. I'd do it as someone who'd learned that sometimes the best revenge wasn't getting mad, it was getting even.